Mercy Jane Hollister pressed the knife against the stranger's throat. "One more step and I'll kill you." She was 11 years old, starving, shaking so hard the blade rattled against his skin. Behind her, 4 children huddled in darkness. Her brother Sam, 9, with his twisted leg. Hope, 7, who hadn't spoken in 19 days. Toby, 6, the colored boy everyone wanted gone. And Faith, 4 years old, burning with fever, maybe dying. The stranger didn't flinch. "Go ahead," he said. "But if you kill me, who's going to save your sister? Stay with us until the very end. Drop a comment with your city so we can see how far this story travels. Hit subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens to these children." 30 seconds earlier, Elijah Brennan had been ready to die. Not dramatically, not heroically, just quietly in a frozen ditch somewhere between nowhere and nothing, the way men like him were supposed to go. 4 years of running, 4 years of whiskey and guilt, and waking up screaming his daughter's name. Rosie, 5 years old, burned alive while he was off chasing cattle. The war hadn't killed him. Gettysburg hadn't killed him. But that fire in Kansas had murdered everything that mattered. So when Eli rode into Silver Creek, Wyoming territory that December evening, he wasn't looking for redemption. He was looking for a saloon, a bottle, and maybe a reason to stop breathing by morning. Then he heard the women talking. "Those Hollister orphans won't last another week. Reverend Blackwood's coming Tuesday, taking them east. Best thing for them. 5 children, no parents, middle of winter. What else can anyone do?" Eli's boots stopped moving. 5 children. Where? The word came out like gravel. The women turned. Mrs. Garrett, thin and sharp. Mrs. Perkins, soft and guilty. They looked at him the way frontier women looked at drifters measuring threat, calculating worth. "Miller's cabin," Mrs. Garrett said. "Edge of town. But don't bother yourself, mister. They're spoken for." Spoken for? The Children's Aid Society. Reverend Blackwood runs it, takes orphans to good families back east. Eli knew about those good families. Knew about the coal mines in Pennsylvania that paid 50 cents a head for small bodies. Knew about the textile mills that worked children 16 hours a day until their fingers bled and their lungs blackened. How long they been alone? Since the typhoid. Mrs. Perkins couldn't meet his eyes. 2 months, maybe more. Someone feeding them. Silence. Then Mrs. Garrett, defensive. "We've done what we can. Left food when we could spare it. Winter's hard on everyone." "Hard on everyone," Eli repeated. He looked at their fur coats, their warm gloves, the packages in their arms from the general store. "Which way?" "Dag." The cabin was dying faster than the children inside it. Eli saw it from 50 yards out, walls leaning drunk, roof half collapsed, no smoke from the chimney. December in Wyoming. 15 below zero, no fire. His horse balked at the approach. "Easy, girl." He dismounted, tied her to a frozen post. "Won't be long." He was wrong about that. The door hung crooked on one hinge. He pushed it open, slow hands visible, voice low. "Anyone here? I'm not armed. Just want to help." Nothing. Then breathing. Ragged. Multiple sources. And underneath it, a sound that made his stomach drop, the wet rattle of a child fighting for air. "I'm coming in." He stepped through. Darkness. Cold so sharp it hurt to breathe. And in the far corner, a shape that resolved into 5 children pressed together like animals in a trap. The oldest girl stood in front of them. She had a knife. "Get out." Her voice didn't shake. Her hands did. "Get out, or I swear to God, easy now." "I'm not easy." She stepped forward, blade catching what little light leaked through the broken roof. "Everyone comes here saying they want to help. Nobody helps. They look at us and shake their heads and go back to their warm houses and their full bellies, and they forget." "I'm not forgetting." "You will. They all do. Mrs. Garrett said she'd bring food. Never came back. The preacher said God provides. God hasn't provided anything. The sheriff said there's nothing he can do. It's not a crime to be poor. What's your name? The question stopped her. What? Your name. What is it? Why do you care? Because I'm about to make you a promise, and I don't make promises to strangers. She stared at him. Behind her, Eli could see the other children now. A boy about 9, twisted leg, sharp eyes, positioning himself as last defense. A girl maybe 7, completely still clutching a cloth doll, eyes fixed on nothing. A smaller boy, dark-skinned, pressed against her like he was trying to disappear. And the littlest. The littlest wasn't moving at all. That one. Eli pointed. The baby. How long she been like that? The knife wavered. 2 days. The oldest girl's voice cracked. She won't wake up. I've tried everything. I've tried. She needs a doctor. We don't have money for doctors. I do. Silence. What? I have money. Not much, but enough for a doctor. Enough for food. Enough for firewood. He took a step closer. But first I need your name. The girl's face worked through emotions too fast to track. Fear. Hope. Suspicion. More fear. Mercy, she said finally. Mercy Jane Hollister. Mercy. He tested it. I'm Elijah Brennan. Folks call me Eli. I don't care what folks call you. Fair enough. Another step. Here's my promise, Mercy Jane Hollister. I'm going to get a doctor for your sister. I'm going to get food and firewood and whatever else you need. And I'm going to make sure nobody takes you children anywhere you don't want to go. Why? The question hit him like a fist. Why? Because 4 years ago, he'd made the same promise to his own daughter and failed. Because he'd spent every day since running from graves he couldn't bear to visit. Because this girl, this fierce, starving, desperate girl looked at him with eyes that expected nothing and deserved everything. Because someone should, he said. Because I stopped walking past. Mercy studied him. Then she stepped aside. Sam, let him see Faith. The boy with the twisted leg, Sam, moved like someone twice his age, careful, watchful. He uncurled from around the smaller children and lifted the baby into the dim light. Eli's heart stopped. 4 years old. Burning with fever skin, gray-white breathing, shallow and wet. She looked like Rosie had looked in the hours before the end. She looked like death wearing a child's face. How long since she ate? 3 days. Sam's voice was flat, controlled. Drank water yesterday. Wouldn't take any today. The coughing? Started 4 days ago. Got worse. Eli pulled off his glove, pressed his hand to the child's forehead. Fire and ice. Fever so high it should have killed her already. What's her name? Faith. Sam watched him without blinking. Faith Miriam Hollister. She's 4. 4 years old. Same as Rosie. I'm getting the doctor, Eli said. Right now. Dr. Morrison won't come. Mercy's voice was bitter. I already asked. He's scared of typhoid. Says we're contagious. Is it typhoid? No. Our parents had typhoid. This is different. Her lungs... Mercy's voice broke. It's in her lungs. Pneumonia. Eli had seen it in army camps. Seen men drown in their own bodies gasping for air that wouldn't come. Morrison's coming whether he wants to or not. He turned for the door. Wait. The dark-skinned boy spoke for the first time. Small voice. Careful. Mr. Eli looked back. The boy was maybe 6, pressed against the silent girl like her shadow. His skin was brown as good earth, his eyes huge and watchful. What's your name, son? Toby. Barely a whisper. Are you gonna help me too, or just them? The question hit Eli somewhere deep. Why wouldn't I help you? Toby's eyes dropped. Some folks say, colored children don't count the same. Mercy made a sharp sound. Toby, it's what Mrs. Garrett said. when I asked her for bread. She said the Aid Society has special arrangements for children like me. Eli felt something dark and hot rise in his chest. Look at me, Toby. The boy looked up. You see 5 children in this cabin? I see 5 children in this cabin. Anyone tells you different, you send them to me. Understand? Toby nodded slowly. Good. Now. Eli looked at the silent girl. 7 years old, clutching that cloth doll, staring at nothing. What's her name? Hope, Sam answered. She used to talk all the time, before the parents died. Before she watched them die. Eli closed his eyes. 5 children, 1 dying, 1 mute from trauma, 1 crippled, 1 marked by skin color that would make half the territory want him dead, and 1 11-year-old girl trying to hold them all together with nothing but willpower and a rusty knife. I'll be back, he said. 1 hour. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. How do we know you'll come back? Mercy's voice was hard again, protecting herself from Hope. Eli pulled something from around his neck. A chain. A locket. He pressed it into Mercy's hands. That belonged to my daughter. She died 4 years ago. It's the only thing I have left of her. Mercy opened it. Inside, a tiny photograph. A little girl with dark curls and a gap-toothed smile. Her name was Rosie. She was 5. Mercy looked up at him. I couldn't save her. The words felt like broken glass. I've spent 4 years trying to outrun that, but tonight I walked past this cabin and I heard her voice in my head, clear as anything. You know what she said? Mercy shook her head. She said, Stop running, Papa. Help them. He closed Mercy's fingers around the locket. You hold on to that. I'll be back for it. And for you. All of you. He walked out into the frozen dark. The saloon was warm and loud and full of people who weren't thinking about 5 children freezing to death a quarter-mile away. Eli spotted the doctor immediately. Thin man spectacles 3 drinks deep, holding court at a corner table about the philosophical complexities of frontier medicine. Eli walked up to him. You Morrison? The doctor looked up with bleary eyes. Who's asking? There's a child dying in Miller's cabin, 4 years old. Fever lungs full of fluid. You're going to come with me right now. Morrison laughed. Those Hollister brats, I don't think so. Typhoid house. I go near them, I risk my own. Eli grabbed him by the throat. The saloon went silent. Let me explain something. His voice was quiet, conversational. That child is going to see a doctor tonight. You can walk there on your own feet, or I can drag you by your hair. Pick. This is assault, Sheriff. A chair scraped, boots on wood, a voice like rusted iron. What's going on here? Eli didn't let go of Morrison's throat, didn't turn around. Sheriff, this man is choking me. I can see that. Question is why? 5 children are dying in Miller's cabin, Eli said. This man refuses to treat them. Those orphans. The sheriff moved into Eli's peripheral vision. Big man, salt and pepper hair, scar across his forehead. Nothing to be done for them. Reverend Blackwood's taking them east on Tuesday. Over my dead body. That can be arranged, stranger. Now Eli turned. The sheriff was looking at him with eyes that held recognition, not friendly recognition. I know you, the sheriff said slowly. Gettysburg, you were Union, artillery. And you were Confederate, infantry. Thomas Bridger, I watched you blow apart half my company with a cannon. Eli released Morrison, faced the sheriff fully. War's over, Bridger. Is it? The sheriff's hand rested on his pistol. Seems to me you're still fighting something. Right now, I'm fighting to save 5 children who your town left to die. We didn't leave them to die. We made arrangements. You made arrangements to ship them east like cattle, to factories and workhouses and God knows what else. That's not saving them. That's selling them. Bridger's jaw tightened. You don't know anything about this town or those children. I know what I saw. 5 kids alone in a cabin with no fire, no food, and a 4-year-old drowning in her own lungs. I know your good people walk past every day and tell themselves it's someone else's problem. You're a stranger here. You've got no right. I've got no right. Eli stepped forward. The whole saloon was watching now. I've got no right to care about children starving to death. I've got no right to demand a doctor treat a dying child. What rights do I need? Sheriff, what papers do I have to file to give a damn? Bridger's face reddened. You can't just ride into town and... I already did. Silence stretched like piano wire. Then from the back of the room, a woman's voice. I'll go with him. Everyone turned. She was maybe 35, dark hair pulled back, apron still dusted with flour, plain features, strong hands, eyes that had seen trouble and chosen to face it anyway. Abigail Thorne. Bridger's voice held warning. Stay out of this. No. She walked toward Eli, ignoring the stares. I've got soup on my stove and bread in my oven. Those children need food more than they need your arguing. She looked at Morrison with undisguised contempt. You want to know what's killing that baby doctor? It's not typhoid. It's pneumonia. I've seen it before. My own sister died of it because the doctor in our town was too scared to treat her. Her voice hardened. You going to let another child die because you're a coward? Morrison's face went white, then red. I'll need my bag. Then get it. Eli grabbed his arm, hauled him upright. Mrs. Thorne, I'm grateful for the help. Don't be grateful yet. She was already moving toward the door. Let's see if we can actually save them first. Bridger stepped into Eli's path. This isn't over, Brennan. Never thought it was. They held each other's gaze for a long moment. Old enemies, old wounds, something unresolved simmering underneath. Then Bridger stepped aside. We'll talk tomorrow. About those children. About what happens next. Looking forward to it. Eli walked out into the frozen night with a drunk doctor stumbling behind him and a baker's widow leading the way. The next hour was controlled chaos. Morrison sobered by cold and fear-examined Faith with shaking hands, while Abigail built up the fire and heated soup on a salvaged pot. Eli split firewood until his arms screamed hauled water from the frozen creek made trip after trip to Abigail's bakery for blankets and bread and anything else that might help. The other children watched in silence. Sam positioned himself where he could see everything, cataloging, calculating. Mercy hovered near Faith, refusing to let her sister out of sight. Toby pressed close to Hope, the 2 smallest conscious ones clinging to each other like survivors of a shipwreck. And Hope. Hope sat in the corner with her doll eyes open, seeing nothing. It's not typhoid, Morrison announced finally. Pneumonia, like Mrs. Thorne said. Serious but treatable if we're not too late. Are we too late? Mercy's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know. Next few hours will tell. Morrison pulled bottles from his bag. I need clean water, hot as you can make it, and someone needs to keep her warm. Body heat's best. I'll do it. Mercy reached for Faith. No. Eli's voice surprised even himself. You've been keeping them alive for 2 months. Tonight someone else takes a shift. But, Mercy. He crouched down to her level. You're 11 years old. You've done more than most adults would do, but you're exhausted. You can't help Faith if you collapse. I won't collapse. You're shaking. She looked down at her hands, trembling. She hadn't even noticed. I can't stop, she said quietly. If I stop, I'll fall apart. Then fall apart. I'll catch you. Mercy stared at him. Why are you doing this? Her voice cracked. You don't know us. You don't owe us anything. People don't just... They don't just... Don't just what? Care. The word came out broken. People don't just care about strangers. Eli thought about Rosie, about the stranger who'd helped him and his father after his mother died. About all the times he'd walked past people who needed help because stopping meant feeling, and feeling meant hurting. "Maybe they should," he said. "Maybe I should have a long time ago. Maybe if I'd been better at caring about strangers, I wouldn't have spent 4 years running from myself." He held out his hand. "Let me take Faith. You get some sleep. I'll wake you if anything changes." Mercy looked at his hand like it was a puzzle she couldn't solve. Then she took it. The night stretched endless. Eli sat with Faith in his arms, her small body burning against his chest, counting every ragged breath like a prayer. Abigail stayed feeding the fire, checking the other children, proving herself worth more than the whole rest of the town combined. Around midnight, Sam limped over and sat beside Eli. "You were in the war." It wasn't a question. "Union, artillery." "Kill anybody?" "Yes." Sam nodded, processing. "My pa was too young for the war. He was 13 when it ended. But he used to say the men who came back weren't the same men who left. He was right about that. You one of those men, the ones who came back wrong." Eli looked at this 9-year-old boy with his twisted leg and his ancient eyes. "Yeah, I'm one of those." "So why should we trust you?" "Fair question." Eli wished he had a better answer. "You shouldn't. Not yet. Trust gets earned over time." He adjusted Faith in his arms. "But I'll tell you what I told your sister. I'm not leaving. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not until I know you're safe." "That's just words. Words are cheap. Showing up is what costs something." Sam studied him for a long moment. "My pa used to say that. Almost exactly that." "Smart man." "He's dead." "I know. I'm sorry." Sam's face didn't change, but something behind his eyes shifted. "The Reverend comes Tuesday. Blackwood. He's got papers that say he can take us. Legal papers. Papers can be challenged. With what? You're a stranger. We've got no other family. The law says orphans go to whoever claims them, and Blackwood's claimed us. Then I'll fight the law." "How?" Eli didn't have an answer. But before he could admit it, Faith stirred in his arms. Her eyes opened, fever-bright, confused, but open. "Mama." His heart cracked. "No, sweetheart, not Mama." "Where's Mama?" Such a small voice, such a big question. "Your mama's not here right now." "But your sister's here. Your brothers. They've been taking care of you." Faith's lip trembled. Her hand reached up, touched his face. "You're scratchy." Despite everything, Eli almost smiled. "Yeah, haven't shaved in a while." Papa was scratchy too. Was he? He gave the best hugs, scratchy hugs. Her eyes started to close. "Will you stay like Papa used to?" The question hit him like cannon fire. He thought about Rosie asking the same thing. "Promise you'll stay, Papa." Promise. He'd promised. He'd lied. He'd left. "Yeah," he heard himself say. "I'll stay." Faith's tiny fingers curled around his thumb. She was asleep again in moments. But Eli sat there until dawn, holding that hand, feeling his dead heart beat for the first time in 4 years. Morning came gray and bitter. Faith's fever had broken in the night. Morrison, who'd dozed in the corner, examined her again and declared her out of immediate danger. He left with a reminder that he expected payment, and Eli let him go without violence, which was more than the man deserved. Abigail stayed. "I've got to open the bakery," she said, gathering her things. "But I'll bring food at midday, proper food, not scraps." "Mrs. Thorne?" "Abigail." She paused at the door. "You did a good thing last night, Mr. Brennan. This town, we've let these children down. All of us. I've walked past this cabin a dozen times thinking someone else would handle it." Her voice tightened. "I won't be walking past anymore." She left. Eli turned to find all 5 children watching him. Mercy exhausted but alert. Sam calculating. Hope silent, as always, clutching her doll. Toby hopeful and scared in equal measure. Faith weak but awake, still holding his hand. "What now?" Mercy asked. "Good question. Reverend Blackwood was coming Tuesday. 5 days. Legal papers, legal authority, a whole system designed to turn children into commodities." "Now we figure out how to fight," Eli said. "Fight who?" Sam asked. "Fight what?" "The Reverend's got the law on his side. The town won't help us. We've got nothing." "You've got me." "You're one man." "One man's enough if he doesn't quit." Mercy stepped forward. She was still holding his locket, he realized. Rosie's locket. "Last night you said your daughter told you to help us." "I did." "Did she really?" Eli met her eyes. "I don't know. Maybe it was her voice. Maybe it was my own guilt. Maybe it was just the wind." He took a breath. "But I know what I heard, and I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to fight for you. All of you. And I'm not going to stop until you're safe." Mercy looked at the locket in her hands. Then she held it out to him. "Keep it." He closed her fingers around it. "Hold on to it until this is over, then give it back to me." "Why?" "Because as long as you have it, you'll know I'm coming back." Something shifted in Mercy's face. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of something that might become trust if given time. 5 days, she said. 5 days. "What are we going to do?" Eli looked at these children, this broken, beautiful, impossible family that had somehow become his responsibility. "Whatever it takes." Outside, the wind howled across Silver Creek. And somewhere in town, Reverend Cornelius Blackwood was already counting the money 5 orphans would bring. The first day after the fever broke, Eli learned what it meant to be needed. Faith wouldn't let go of his hand. Every time he tried to pull away, her small fingers tightened, and her eyes filled with panic. So he sat with her through the morning, feeding her broth 1 spoonful at a time, while Mercy watched from across the cabin with an expression he couldn't read. "She thinks you're Papa," Sam said quietly, settling beside them with his bad leg stretched out. "She's too young to understand he's not coming back." "I know." "Does it bother you?" Eli looked at the little girl in his arms. 4 years old. Same age Rosie would have been when she died. Same trusting eyes. Same way of curling her fingers around his thumb, like it was the safest place in the world. "No," he said. "It doesn't bother me." What bothered him was the knowledge that in 4 days, a man was coming to take these children away. A man with legal papers and church backing, and a smile that probably hid something rotten underneath. "Tell me about Blackwood," he said. Sam's face went careful. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." The boy was quiet for a moment, organizing his thoughts the way Eli was learning he always did. "He came to town about 3 months ago. Set up the Children's Aid Society office in the church basement. Said he was doing God's work finding homes for orphans out east. And people believed him. Why wouldn't they? He's a reverend. He quotes scripture. He wears black and speaks soft, and everyone thinks he's a saint." Sam's voice went bitter. "But I watched him when he came to see us last week. I watched his eyes." "What did you see?" "He looked at Faith like she was a dollar sign. Looked at me like I was damaged goods." Sam's jaw tightened. "Looked at Toby like he was worth more than all of us combined." Eli's blood went cold. "What do you mean?" "I heard him talking to Mrs. Garrett after. Said there was special demand for colored children. Said the coal mines in Pennsylvania paid double for them because they're smaller and can fit in the tight spaces." Jesus Christ. "He's not getting any of you," Eli said. "Especially not Toby." "How are you going to stop him? He's got papers." "I don't care what he's got. I'll burn those papers if I have to. I'll burn the whole damn church." Sam studied him with those 2 old eyes. "You mean that?" "Every word." "Why, we're nothing to you. Strangers. Burden. 5 mouths to feed that you don't owe anything to." "You're not a burden." "That's what everyone says, right before they leave." The words hung in the cold air. Eli thought about all the people who'd probably said that to these children over the past 2 months. All the promises made and broken, all the hope extended and snatched away. "I'm not everyone," he said. "Prove it." Fair enough. Eli looked around the cabin. Falling apart. Freezing. No place to raise children through a Wyoming winter. First thing we need is a better place to stay. Somewhere warm. Somewhere safe. Where nobody in town will take us in. We've asked. Then we'll find somewhere outside of town. He thought about what he'd overheard in the saloon last night. Fragments of conversation, ranch names, opportunities. "There's a ranch south of here," he said slowly. "Harris Ranch. Widow runs it. I heard someone say she's been looking for help." "Mrs. Harris?" Mercy spoke up from across the room. "She came by once right after our parents died, brought food, said she was sorry. She come back." Mercy's silence was answer enough. "Well," Eli said, "maybe it's time someone reminded her that sorry doesn't fill bellies." He stood carefully, settling Faith into Mercy's arms. The little girl whimpered but didn't wake. "Where are you going?" Mercy's voice held an edge of panic. "Harris Ranch. Going to see about work. About a place for us to stay." "Us." The word slipped out before he could catch it. Us. Like they were already a family. Like he'd already decided. Maybe he had. "I'll be back before dark," he said. "Abigail's bringing food at midday. Stay inside. Don't open the door for anyone you don't know. And if Blackwood comes, tell him the children are under my protection now. Tell him if he wants to discuss it, he can find me at Harris Ranch." Mercy's eyes widened. "You can't just—" "I can. I am." He pulled on his coat. 4 days, Mercy. That's what we've got. I'm not wasting a single hour." He was out the door before she could argue. The ride to Harris Ranch took an hour through snow that came up to his horse's knees. The land was beautiful in that brutal Wyoming way, white and endless mountains cutting the horizon sky so blue it hurt to look at. The kind of country that killed the weak and made the strong stronger. The ranch house appeared through the trees like something from a better world. 2 stories solid timber smoke rising from 3 chimneys. Corrals spread out from the main buildings. Horses moving through the winter pastures. Cattle dotting the distant hills. Money. Stability. Everything those children needed. Eli dismounted at the front porch and knocked. The woman who answered was maybe 60, gray-haired, sharp-eyed, with the weathered look of someone who'd spent a lifetime fighting the frontier and winning. "Help you, Mrs. Harris." "That's right, and you are." "Elijah Brennan. I'm looking for work." She looked him over the way you'd look over a horse you were thinking of buying. Measuring. Assessing. "What kind of work?" "Any kind. I can break horses, mend fence, manage cattle. Did some foreman work down in Texas before I came north." "Why'd you leave Texas?" "Because I buried my wife and daughter there. Because every morning I woke up looking at their graves, and every night I went to sleep wanting to join them." "Needed a change," he said. Mrs. Harris snorted. "Man your age drifting through in December needing a change. Usually means running from something." "Maybe. Doesn't mean I can't work." "No," she admitted. "I suppose it doesn't." She stepped out onto the porch, arms crossed against the cold. "I'll be straight with you, Mr. Brennan. I lost my foreman last month. Heart gave out. Left me short-handed going into the worst part of winter. I need someone who can manage men, handle stock, and not drink himself stupid every Saturday night." "I can do that." "Pays $40 a month plus board. There's a foreman's cabin half-mile from the main house. 2 rooms, wood stove, needs some fixing up, but it's solid." 2 rooms. Enough for 5 children if they squeezed. "I'll take it." Mrs. Harris raised an eyebrow. "Just like that. Don't you want to see the place first?" "I trust it's what you say it is." "Most men would negotiate." "I'm not most men." He paused. "And I've got a condition." Her eyes narrowed. "What kind of condition?" "The Hollister children. 5 orphans living in Miller's cabin in town. I've taken responsibility for them. They come with me." Whatever Mrs. Harris had been expecting, it wasn't that. Her face went through surprise calculation and something else, something that might have been respect. Those children everyone's been talking about. Yes, ma'am. The ones Reverend Blackwood's supposed to take east. The same. And you think you can just claim them against a man with legal papers and church backing? I don't think anything. I know what I'm going to do. Mrs. Harris studied him for a long moment. You know those children include a colored boy. Toby, he's 6. Having him here would cause talk. Some of my hands might not like it. Then they can find work elsewhere. A smile flickered across her weathered face. You're either very brave or very stupid, Mr. Brennan. Probably both. Probably. She was quiet for a moment. I knew the Hollister parents. Good people. Worked hard, loved their children, never asked for charity. When they died, I told myself I'd help. Brought food once meant to come back. Her voice tightened. Never did. Winter got hard. Ranch got busy. I let myself forget. Most people did. That's no excuse. Not for me. She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. My husband died 8 years ago. We never had children. I've got this ranch, got money, got more than I need. And I let 5 children starve because I was too busy. You're not the only one. No, but I'm the one standing here now. She straightened. You want the job, it's yours. You want to bring those children here, bring them. Cabin's big enough if you don't mind close quarters. Relief hit Eli so hard he almost staggered. Mrs. Harris. Margaret. If we're going to be fighting Reverend Blackwood together, we might as well use first names. Fighting together. You think I'm going to let that snake take children off my property? After what I've heard about his special arrangements. Her jaw set. I've got lawyers, Mr. Brennan. I've got money. I've got influence in this territory that Blackwood doesn't know about yet. You handle the children. I'll handle the Reverend. For the first time in 4 years, Eli felt something that might have been hope. Why? He asked. Why help us? Margaret Harris looked out at her land, at the snow and the mountains, and the endless sky. Because I've spent 8 years since my husband died just surviving, building the ranch, making money, keeping busy, so I didn't have to think about how empty this house is. She turned back to him. Maybe it's time I did something that matters. Maybe those children are my chance to make up for all the times I walked past when I should have stopped. She held out her hand. We have a deal, Mr. Brennan. Eli shook it. We have a deal. He rode back to town faster than was safe, his mind racing with plans. Get the children to the ranch, get them settled, then deal with Blackwood. 4 days. Suddenly, it felt like enough. The cabin was warm when he returned. Abigail had been there. He could smell fresh bread and soup. The children were huddled around the fire, Faith sleeping in Mercy's lap, Hope still clutching her doll, Toby and Sam playing some quiet game with pebbles. You're back. Mercy's voice held relief she was trying to hide. Told you I would be. What happened? Eli crouched down so he was level with all of them. I found us a place to stay. Harris Ranch south of town. There's a cabin. 2 rooms, wood stove, solid roof. Mrs. Harris is going to help us fight Blackwood. Sam's head came up. Fight how? She's got lawyers, money, influence. She thinks she can challenge his claim. On what grounds? I don't know yet, but it's more than we had this morning. Mercy's arms tightened around Faith. When do we go? Tomorrow. First light. I want us off town property before Blackwood knows we've moved. What about our things? Sam gestured around the cabin. Our parents' things. Eli looked at the meager possessions scattered around the room. A few clothes, some books, a photograph in a cracked frame. We take what we can carry. Everything that matters. It all matters. Mercy's voice cracked. It's all we have left of them. Eli understood that. God, how he understood. Then we take it all, every last piece. That night, they packed by firelight. Mercy wrapped her mother's china teacup in cloth hands, trembling. Sam organized his father's books by size, making them easier to carry. Even Toby helped folding clothes with careful precision. Only Hope sat apart, clutching her doll, watching without seeing. Eli knelt beside her. Hope, nothing. We're going somewhere safe tomorrow. A ranch with horses and warm rooms and plenty of food. Would you like that? Her eyes didn't move. Her face didn't change. But her fingers tightened on the doll. That's Patience, right, your doll? A flicker. Barely there. Sam told me you used to talk all the time, used to sing, used to be the brightest one of all. He kept his voice gentle. I'm not going to ask you to talk. I'm not going to push. But I want you to know that whenever you're ready, I'll be listening. Still nothing. But Hope's hand moved slowly, carefully, until it rested on his arm. Just for a second. Then it was gone. But it was something. Morning came too fast and too bright. Eli had borrowed a wagon from Abigail's husband's old stable, loaded it with everything the children owned, and hitched his horse to the front. The children climbed in among their belongings, like refugees fleeing a war, which Eli supposed they were. Ready? He asked. Mercy looked back at the cabin, the place where she'd kept her siblings alive for 2 months, the place where her parents had died. No, she said quietly. But let's go anyway. They rolled out of town just as the sun cleared the mountains. Eli kept watch, half expecting Blackwood to appear from some shadow, waving his papers, demanding his property. But the streets were empty. The good people of Silver Creek were still in their warm beds, not thinking about 5 orphans, or the stranger trying to save them. Just as well. The ranch road was rough but passable. Faith slept against Mercy's shoulder. Sam catalogued everything they passed with those sharp eyes. Toby kept up a quiet commentary for Hope, pointing out birds and trees, and the way the snow sparkled in the sunlight. Look, Hope, a hawk. See how it circles. Papa used to say hawks were good luck. Hope didn't respond, but she looked where Toby pointed. Progress. The foreman's cabin appeared through the trees exactly as Margaret had described. Small but solid smoke already rising from the chimney where someone had come ahead to start a fire. 2 rooms, wood stove, shuttered windows. Nothing fancy, but it was theirs. This is it. Mercy's voice was uncertain. This is it. She looked at the cabin, then at Eli, then back at the cabin. It's so small. It's warm. It's safe. It's ours. He helped her down from the wagon. That's more than we had yesterday. The inside was sparse, but clean. Someone Margaret's doing, he assumed, had stocked the shelves with food, laid out blankets on the beds, even left flowers in a jar on the table. Dried winter flowers, but flowers nonetheless. Faith woke as they carried her inside. Where are we? Home, Eli said. The word felt strange in his mouth. He hadn't called anywhere home in 4 years. Home, Faith repeated, tasting it. Then she smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her. I like home. They spent the day settling in. Mercy organized the kitchen with the efficiency of someone who'd been running a household for 2 months. Sam claimed a corner for his books. Toby appointed himself Faith's official guardian, keeping her entertained with stories and games. And Hope sat by the window watching the snow, holding her doll somewhere far away. Eli found himself watching her. She'll come back, Mercy said quietly, appearing beside him. She just needs time. How do you know? Because she's still here, still breathing, still holding on to Patience. Mercy's voice was old beyond her years. If she'd given up completely, she would have let go of that doll. It was Mama's last gift to her. Eli thought about his locket, about how he'd held onto it for 4 years, like it was the only thing keeping him tethered to the world. Yeah, he said. I understand that. Around midday, Margaret Harris rode up to the cabin. She brought more supplies, winter clothes for the children, boots that actually fit a ham that made Mercy's eyes go wide. But she also brought news. Blackwood knows you've moved. Eli's jaw tightened. How? Mrs. Garrett saw your wagon leaving town. Told the Reverend within the hour. Margaret's expression was grim. He's not happy. Came to my ranch office demanding to know what I thought I was doing harboring his children. What did you tell him? I told him these children aren't his. Never were his. And if he wants to discuss their future, he can do it through my lawyers. How'd he take that? About as well as you'd expect. Quoted scripture at me. Threatened to bring the matter before the territorial judge. She paused. He also mentioned you specifically. Said you're an outsider with no legal standing. Said any claim you make can be challenged and overturned. He's right about one thing. I am an outsider. You're also the only person who stepped up for these children. That counts for something. Margaret looked at the cabin at the children visible through the window. I've sent word to my lawyer in Cheyenne. He's coming tomorrow. We'll figure out how to make this legal. Guardianship papers adoption if you want it. Something Blackwood can't challenge. If you want it. Did he want it? Did he want to become responsible for 5 children? Did he want to stop running, stop hiding, stop pretending he didn't care about anything? He looked through the window at Faith, who was laughing at something Toby had said. At Sam, who was reading aloud from one of his father's books. At Mercy, who was actually relaxing for the first time since he'd met her. At Hope, still silent, still broken, but still here. Yeah, he said. I want it. Margaret nodded like she'd expected nothing less. Then we fight. That night, after the children were asleep, Eli sat by the fire and let himself think about what he'd done. 3 days ago, he'd been ready to die. Had been looking for a reason to stop existing. Had ridden into Silver Creek expecting nothing but whiskey and emptiness. Now he had 5 children depending on him. A ranch job, a wealthy ally, a purpose, and an enemy. Blackwood wasn't going to give up. Eli knew men like him, men who hid cruelty behind scripture, who used faith as a weapon, who saw children as commodities to be bought and sold. Men like that didn't back down. They escalated. The question was, how far would Blackwood go? A soft sound interrupted his thoughts. Eli turned. Hope was standing in the doorway of the children's room, pale, trembling, eyes wide with terror. Nightmare. He moved slowly the way he'd move toward a spooked horse. Hope you okay? Nothing. Bad dream. Her lip trembled. Her hands clutched Patience so hard her knuckles went white. You want to come sit by the fire? It's warm here. For a long moment she didn't move. Then slowly she walked toward him. Small steps. Careful. Like she was crossing a frozen lake and wasn't sure the ice would hold. She stopped a few feet away. Eli patted the space beside him. Plenty of room. Hope looked at the spot. Looked at him. Looked back at the spot. Then she sat. Not close. Not touching. But beside him. They sat together in silence watching the flames. Eli didn't push, didn't ask questions, just let her be. After a while, Hope's head started to droop. Her body began to lean, and then so gradually he almost missed it. She was pressed against his side. Eyes closed, breathing steady. Asleep. Eli didn't move. He sat there until dawn, letting a broken little girl sleep against his shoulder, and wondered if this was what redemption felt like. Morning brought the lawyer. His name was Thomas Whitfield, and he looked exactly like what Eli expected a Cheyenne lawyer to look like: expensive suit-polished boots, the kind of confidence that came from winning more fights than you lost. Mr. Brennan. He shook Eli's hand with a firm grip. Mrs. Harris has told me about your situation. Quite extraordinary. That's one word for it. Let me be direct. Reverend Blackwood has legal standing through the Children's Aid Society. His papers are legitimate. If this goes before a judge, he has a strong case. Eli's heart sank. So we can't win. I didn't say that. I said he has a strong case. We need a stronger one. Whitfield pulled documents from his briefcase. Guardianship. If you file for legal guardianship of all 5 children, you establish yourself as their primary caretaker. It's not adoption that takes longer, but it gives you standing to contest Blackwood's claim. What do I need? Proof of stable employment. Done thanks to Mrs. Harris. Proof of suitable housing. Done. Character references. Mrs. Harris, Mrs. Thorne, anyone else who will vouch for you. Whitfield paused. And ideally testimony from the children themselves that they want to stay with you. Their children. Does their testimony matter? More than you'd think. Judges don't like tearing children away from people they've bonded with. If those children stand up in court and say they want to stay with you, it carries weight. Eli thought about Mercy's fierce protectiveness, Sam's careful trust, Toby's desperate question. Even me. They'll testify, he said. I know they will. Good. Then we have a case. Whitfield stood. I'll file the guardianship papers today. That should buy us time. Blackwood can't legally remove the children while the matter is pending before the court. How much time? Weeks. Maybe months if we're lucky. Long enough to build a case he can't break. After Whitfield left, Eli gathered the children together. He told them everything. The legal battle ahead. The guardianship papers. What it would mean if they won. And what it would mean if they lost. I need to know, he said. If it comes down to a judge asking what you want, what will you say? Sam spoke first. I'll say I want to stay. With you. Here. Me too, Toby said quickly. I don't want to go to the mines. I don't want to go anywhere with that reverend. He looks at me like I'm not a person. Faith climbed into Eli's lap. I want to stay with you. You're scratchy like Papa. Mercy was quiet for a long moment. 2 months, she finally said. 2 months I kept them alive, begged for food, stole when I had to, did things I'm not proud of just to keep my brothers and sisters breathing. Her voice shook. And in 3 days, you've done more for us than this whole town did in 2 months. So yes, I'll tell any judge who asks that I want to stay with you. That you're the first person who ever made me feel like we might actually be okay. Eli's throat tightened. Then they all looked at Hope. The little girl sat in her corner, holding patience, staring at nothing. Hope. Mercy's voice was gentle. You don't have to talk, but if the judge asks, can you nod? Can you show him you want to stay? Silence. Then slowly, Hope's head moved, up and down, just once, but it was enough. Okay, Eli said. Then we fight. Together. That night, the first snow of the real winter began to fall. Eli stood on the cabin porch watching it come down, thinking about everything that had changed in 3 days. About the man he'd been when he rode into Silver Creek. About the man he was becoming. Mercy appeared beside him. You're going to freeze out here. Probably. She didn't go back inside. Instead, she stood with him watching the snow. I still have your locket, she said quietly. I know. When do you want it back? Eli thought about that. About Rosie. About what the locket meant, and what it had meant, and what it might mean now. When this is over, he said. When you're safe. When you don't need proof anymore that I'm coming back. Mercy was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'm starting to believe you might actually stay. Just starting. I'm a slow learner. But there was something in her voice that wasn't there before. Something that sounded almost like trust. That's okay, Eli said. I've got time. Inside the cabin, Faith laughed at something Toby said. Sam corrected one of Toby's facts with patient exasperation. And somewhere in the corner, Hope held her doll and watched them all with eyes that were just beginning to show signs of life. Outside, the snow fell harder. But inside, there was warmth. There was light. There was the beginning of a family. And somewhere in town, Reverend Cornelius Blackwood was reading the guardianship papers and planning his next move. The snow stopped falling on the 3rd morning, but the cold only got worse. Eli woke before dawn to find Faith curled against his side, her small body seeking warmth even in sleep. Sometime during the night she'd crawled from the children's room to his cot, and he hadn't had the heart to move her. He lay there in the darkness, listening to her breathe, and wondered when he'd stopped being a man with nothing to lose. The answer came easy the moment he'd walked into that cabin and seen 5 children waiting to die. A knock at the door shattered the silence. Eli was on his feet before the second knock, reaching for the rifle he'd started keeping by the bed. Faith stirred, but didn't wake. In the other room, he heard Mercy moving, heard Sam's sharp intake of breath. "Who is it?" Eli called. "Sheriff Bridger." "Open up, Brennan." Eli's jaw tightened. He crossed to the door, rifle in hand, and pulled it open. Bridger stood on the porch, breath fogging in the frozen air. Behind him, 2 deputies sat on horseback, hands resting on their weapons. "Little early for a social call, Sheriff." "This isn't social." Bridger's eyes went to the rifle, then back to Eli's face. "Reverend Blackwood's filed a complaint. Says you're harboring children that belong under his care. Those children don't belong to anyone. They're people, not property. The law says different." "Then the law's wrong." Bridger's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "You know I could arrest you right now. Obstruction. Interference with a legal custody arrangement. You could try?" The 2 men stared at each other. Old enemies. Old wounds. The war might have ended 15 years ago, but some battles never stopped. "I'm not here to arrest you," Bridger said finally. "I'm here to warn you. Blackwood's not going to let this go. He's got connections, money, friends in Cheyenne who owe him favors. So do I." "Mrs. Harris," Bridger snorted. "She's got influence, sure. But Blackwood's been doing this for years. He knows how the system works. He knows which judges to talk to, which palms to grease." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you're going to lose. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, but eventually. The law's on his side, and the law always wins." Eli stepped closer, close enough that Bridger had to look up to meet his eyes. "Then why are you here? Why warn me instead of just hauling me in?" Bridger was quiet for a long moment. "Because I've seen those children," he said finally. "Saw them in town before you came. Saw the way everyone walked past. The way I walked past." His voice went rough. "I told myself it wasn't my problem. Told myself someone else would handle it. But nobody did. And now you're here doing what the rest of us should have done months ago." "That doesn't answer my question." "I'm not a good man, Brennan. Did things in the war I'm not proud of. Did things after the war that were worse. But even I've got limits." Bridger's eyes were hard. "Those children deserve better than what Blackwood's got planned for them. I can't help you, not officially, not without losing my badge, but I can give you time." "How?" "I can make sure any warrants get delayed. Paperwork gets lost. Deputies get reassigned. Buy you a few extra days to build your case." Eli studied the man's face, looking for the lie. Looking for the trap. He didn't find one. "Why?" he asked. "We were enemies. You said yourself I killed half your company." "War's over." Bridger turned away, heading for his horse. "And maybe I'm tired of being on the wrong side of things." He mounted up, looked back one last time. "Watch your back, Brennan. Blackwood's coming, and he won't be alone." The deputies followed him down the road, disappearing into the gray morning. Eli stood on the porch until they were gone, rifle still in his hands, mind racing. What did he want? He turned. Mercy stood in the doorway. Sam behind her, both of them pale with fear. "Warning," Eli said. "Blackwood's making his move." "What are we going to do?" He looked at her, this 11-year-old girl who'd been carrying the weight of the world for 2 months. Who'd kept her siblings alive through hunger and cold and grief. Who'd put a knife to his throat because she'd learned the hard way that trusting strangers got you hurt. "We're going to fight," he said. "And we're going to win." The day passed in preparation. Margaret Harris sent 2 of her ranch hands to help fortify the cabin, not against weather, but against whatever Blackwood might try. They boarded up the weaker windows, reinforced the door, stacked firewood high enough to last a siege. Abigail Thorne came with more food and something else news. "Blackwood's been talking to people in town," she said, "helping Mercy organize supplies. Telling anyone who'll listen that you're an unfit guardian. A drifter. A drunk. A man with a violent past." "Most of that's true," Eli said. "Maybe. But he's also telling them you're keeping those children against their will, that you've got them scared into staying. That's a lie." "I know it is, but not everyone does." Abigail's face was grim. "He's building a case, Mr. Brennan, not just legal public. If he can turn the town against you, the judge will have an easier time ruling in his favor. Then we need to turn the town back." How? Eli thought about that. Thought about all the people who'd walked past those children for 2 months. All the guilt they must be carrying. All the shame they were trying to bury. "By reminding them what they did," he said, "and what they can still do to make it right." That afternoon he rode into town. The streets of Silver Creek had never felt so hostile. People who'd ignored 5 starving children now stared at him with suspicion, with judgment, with the righteous anger of folks who'd rather blame someone else than face their own failures. He found what he was looking for at the general store. Mrs. Garrett was behind the counter, the same woman who'd told him about the children that first night. She went pale when she saw him. "Mr. Brennan, I don't want any trouble." "Neither do I." He placed his hands on the counter, kept his voice calm. "I just want to ask you something." "What?" "When you told me about those children, you said you'd done what you could. Said you left food when you could spare it." Her face reddened. "I did leave food. Once or twice." "Once or twice. In 2 months. Winter's hard on everyone. Winter's hard." Eli leaned forward. "But you know what's harder? Being 11 years old and watching your 4-year-old sister almost die because nobody in this whole town cared enough to help." "Mrs." Garrett's eyes dropped. "You feel guilty?" Eli continued. "I can see it. Everyone in this town feels guilty. And Blackwood knows it. He's counting on you to salve that guilt by telling yourselves those children are better off going east. That way, you never have to face what you did. What you didn't do." "That's not fair." "Fair." Something in Eli's voice made her flinch. "You want to talk about fair talk to Mercy, who hasn't slept through the night in 2 months, because she's been too busy keeping her siblings alive. Talk to Sam, who's 9 years old and already knows that adults can't be trusted. Talk to Toby, who heard you tell Mrs. Perkins that colored children don't count the same." Mrs. Garrett's face went white. "Yeah," Eli said. "He heard that. 6 years old and he already knows this town thinks he's worth less than a white child." "I didn't mean—" "You never do. Nobody ever does." He straightened. "But here's the thing, Mrs. Garrett. You've got a chance to make it right. Blackwood's going to come for those children. He's going to try to take them east to factories and mines and God knows what else. And when he does, this town can either help him or help me. What do you want from us? Come to the courthouse when the judge hears the case, all of you, and tell the truth about what happened, about how you walked past those children every day, about how you let them starve, about how the only reason they're alive is because a stranger did what you wouldn't." Mrs. Garrett's hands were shaking. "That would mean admitting you failed." "Yeah, it would." Eli held her gaze. "But it might also mean saving 5 children's lives. Question is, what matters more to you, your pride or their future?" He left without waiting for an answer. By the time he got back to the cabin, word had spread. Margaret met him at the door. "You stirred up a hornet's nest in town. Half the people are saying you're right and they should have done more. The other half are saying you're a troublemaker who should mind his own business." Which half is bigger? Hard to say, but Blackwood's not happy. He's moved up his timeline. Eli's blood went cold. "What do you mean?" "The hearing's tomorrow, 10 o'clock. Judge Morrison, no relation to the doctor, is riding in from Cheyenne tonight." "Tomorrow?" Eli's mind raced. "That's not enough time. Whitfield said we'd have weeks. Blackwood called in favors, got the judge to expedite." Margaret's face was grim. "This is it, Eli. Tomorrow we either win or we lose everything." That night, Eli couldn't sleep. He sat by the fire watching the flames, trying to figure out how to protect 5 children from a system designed to treat them as property. Trying to figure out how to make a judge see them as people. Footsteps behind him. He turned. All 5 children stood in the doorway. Mercy in front, Sam beside her, Toby and Faith holding hands, and Hope, who'd been silent for weeks, who'd barely acknowledged anyone's existence, who'd retreated so far into herself that Eli had wondered if she'd ever come back. Hope was looking at him, not through him, at him. "We couldn't sleep," Mercy said. "We heard you and Mrs. Harris talking." "The hearing's tomorrow," Sam added. "We know." Eli rubbed his face. "You shouldn't have heard that." "Why?" "Because we're children." Mercy's voice was sharp. "We've been through more than most adults in this town. We can handle knowing what's at stake." "She's right." Sam settled into a chair, stretching out his bad leg. "We need to know what we're facing. All of it." "Fair enough. They'd earned that much." "The judge is coming tomorrow," Eli said. "He's going to decide whether you stay with me or go with Blackwood." "What are our chances?" Sam asked. "Honestly, I don't know. Whitfield says we have a case, but Blackwood's been doing this for years. He knows the system." "So we might lose." "We might." Faith climbed into Eli's lap the way she'd been doing every night. "I don't want to go with the scary man. He has mean eyes." "I know, sweetheart. Can't you make him go away?" "I'm trying." Toby stepped forward, his small face serious. "Mr. Eli, if we lose, if the judge says we have to go with Reverend Blackwood, what happens then?" Eli thought about lying, thought about softening the truth, but these children had been lied to enough. "Then we run," he said. "All of us. We pack what we can carry, and we disappear. Head west, find somewhere nobody knows us, start over." "You'd do that." Mercy's voice was barely a whisper. "Give up everything for us." "I'd do more than that." Eli met her eyes. "I'd burn down every courthouse in the territory if that's what it took to keep you safe." Silence. Then Mercy did something she'd never done before. She crossed the room and hugged him. It was awkward. She was 11 and had forgotten how to accept comfort, but it was real. Eli wrapped his arms around her and felt her shake with sobs she'd been holding back for months. "I'm so tired," she whispered into his chest. "I'm so tired of being scared all the time." "I know. I don't want to be brave anymore. I don't want to be the strong one. I just want to be a kid." "Then be a kid." He held her tighter. "Let me be the strong one for a while." The dam broke. 2 months of grief and fear and exhaustion poured out of her in racking sobs. Sam moved closer, put his hand on her back. Toby pressed against Eli's side. Faith wrapped her small arms around Mercy's waist. And Hope. Hope walked across the room slow and careful, like she was learning to move again. She stopped beside Eli, looked at her siblings crying and holding each other. Then she spoke. "Don't let him take us." 4 words. The first word she'd said in almost 3 weeks. Everyone went still. "Hope." Mercy pulled back, tears streaming down her face. "Hope, you talked. Don't let him take us." Hope's voice was rusty, broken, but real. "Please, I don't want to go." Eli reached out, pulled her into the embrace with the others. "I won't," he said. "I swear to God I won't let him take you." They stayed like that for a long time, 6 people holding on to each other in a small cabin while the winter wind howled outside. Eli felt something shift inside him, something that had been frozen for 4 years, finally beginning to thaw. These weren't just children he was protecting. They were his children, his family, and he would die before he let anyone tear them apart. The morning of the hearing dawned gray and bitter. Eli dressed the children in their best clothes, the ones Margaret had bought, the ones that actually fit. Mercy braided Faith's hair with trembling fingers. Sam polished his father's pocket watch until it gleamed. Toby stood straight and tall, refusing to let anyone see his fear. And Hope held Eli's hand the whole way to town. The courthouse was packed. Mrs. Garrett was there. Mrs. Perkins, Abigail Thorne, Sheriff Bridger standing in the back with his arms crossed, Margaret Harris seated in the front row with her lawyer, and Reverend Cornelius Blackwood, thin and dark in his black suit, smiling like a man who'd already won. "All rise," the bailiff called. "The Honorable Judge William Morrison presiding." The judge was old white-haired, with eyes that had seen too much and believed too little. He settled into his chair, looked over the crowded courtroom, and frowned. "This is a custody hearing, not a circus. I want order." "Yes, Your Honor," Blackwood said smoothly. "I'll be brief. The facts are simple. 5 orphan children left without legal guardians after their parents' death. The Children's Aid Society, an organization sanctioned by the church and the state, has arranged for their placement with families back east. Mr. Brennan here has no legal standing, no blood relation, and no right to interfere." The judge turned to Eli. "Mr. Brennan, your response." Eli stood. His legs felt weak, his mouth was dry. "Your Honor, those children were dying when I found them. Starving, freezing, abandoned by this town for 2 months. Reverend Blackwood talks about legal standing, but where was the law when those children needed help? Where was the church? Where was anyone? That's not the question before this court." "It should be." Eli's voice rose. "The question isn't who has papers. The question is, who actually cares about those children? Who's been feeding them, housing them, protecting them? Not Reverend Blackwood. Not the Children's Aid Society. Me. Mr. Brennan. And let me tell you something else about those families back east." Eli pointed at Blackwood. "Ask him what happens to the children he places. Ask him about the coal mines that pay 50 cents a head for small bodies. Ask him about the factories that work 10-year-olds 16 hours a day. Ask him about the special arrangements for colored children." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Blackwood's smile never wavered. "These are baseless accusations, Your Honor. I've placed hundreds of children with loving families. Then you won't mind if we call some of those families as witnesses." Everyone turned. Margaret Harris was standing. "I've had my lawyers do some research, Your Honor. We've identified 14 children placed by Reverend Blackwood in the past 3 years. 7 of them have died. 3 are missing. 4 are working in conditions that would make a prison look humane." The courtroom exploded. The judge banged his gavel. "Order! Order! Your Honor." Whitfield stepped forward. "We request a continuance to investigate these allegations fully." "No continuance." Blackwood's composure finally cracked. "This is a delay tactic. These children need to be placed immediately." "Why?" Eli demanded. "What's the rush?" "Unless you've got buyers waiting." "How dare you!" "Enough!" The judge's voice silenced the room. He sat back, rubbing his temples. "Mr. Brennan, you've filed for guardianship of these children." "Yes, sir." "And you have stable employment housing, the means to support them." "Yes, sir. I'm foreman at Harris Ranch. I have a cabin. I have references." "And the children themselves, what do they want?" Eli turned to look at Mercy, Sam, Hope, Toby, and Faith seated in the front row. 5 faces. 5 children who'd survived more than any children should have to survive. "Ask them." The judge leaned forward. "Very well." Children approached the bench. They stood together, walked forward together, faced the judge together. "I'm going to ask each of you a question." The judge said, his voice gentler now. "And I want you to answer honestly. Not what you think I want to hear, not what anyone has told you to say. The truth. Understood?" 5 nods. "Do you want to stay with Mr. Brennan?" Mercy spoke first. "Yes, Your Honor. He saved my sister's life. He's the first person who ever made me feel like we might actually be okay. Sam. Yes, he listens. He doesn't treat me like I'm broken because of my leg. Toby. Yes, sir. He told me I count the same as anyone. Nobody ever told me that before. Faith. Yes, he's scratchy like Papa, and he gives good hugs. And Hope. Silent. Hope. Broken. Hope. Hope, who'd watched her parents die and retreated into herself. He promised, she said quietly. He promised he'd keep us safe. And he does. Every day. The courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison sat back in his chair. He looked at Blackwood, at Eli, at the 5 children standing before him. I've heard enough. The judge's words hung in the air like gun smoke. I've heard enough. Eli's heart stopped. Beside him, Mercy grabbed his hand so hard her fingernails drew blood. The courtroom held its breath. Judge Morrison removed his spectacles, rubbed his eyes, and when he looked up again, something had shifted in his expression. Reverend Blackwood, he said slowly, the allegations raised by Mrs. Harris are deeply troubling. I'm ordering a full investigation into the Children's Aid Society's placement records. Your Honor, this is outrageous. I'm not finished. The judge's voice went cold. Until that investigation is complete, you are prohibited from removing any children from this territory. Any attempt to do so will result in your immediate arrest. Blackwood's face went white, then red. You can't. I can. I just did. The judge turned to Eli. Mr. Brennan, your petition for guardianship is provisionally approved. You will have full custody of the 5 Hollister children pending the outcome of the investigation. If Mrs. Harris's allegations prove false, we'll revisit the matter. If they prove true... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. For a moment, Eli couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't believe what had just happened. Then Faith slammed into his legs, wrapping her arms around him, shouting, "We get to stay! We get to stay!" And suddenly, everyone was moving. Mercy was crying. Sam was actually smiling. Toby was jumping up and down. Even Hope quiet broken. Hope had tears streaming down her face. Eli dropped to his knees and pulled them all close. "We did it," Mercy whispered into his shoulder. "We actually did it." "Not yet," Eli said. "Not completely, but we're close." He looked up and caught Blackwood's eye across the courtroom. The Reverend wasn't smiling anymore. His face was a mask of cold fury, and in his eyes Eli saw something that made his blood run cold. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The celebration at the cabin lasted well into the evening. Margaret Harris brought champagne, real champagne, all the way from Denver. Abigail Thorne brought enough food to feed an army. Even Sheriff Bridger stopped by, awkward and uncomfortable, but there nonetheless. "You did good today," Bridger said, standing apart from the others. "Didn't think you had a chance." "Neither did I. Blackwood's not going to let this go." "I know." "You watch yourself, Brennan. Man like that cornered like that. He's dangerous." Eli nodded. "I appreciate the warning." Bridger looked at the children playing some game near the fire, laughing like they hadn't laughed in months. "They're good kids," he said quietly. "Deserve better than what this town gave them." "Yes, they do." "Maybe..." Bridger hesitated. "Maybe I could have done more, back when it started. Maybe we all could have. Maybe. I'm sorry, for what that's worth." Eli studied the sheriff's face, saw the guilt there, the shame, the slow, painful process of a man confronting his own failures. "It's worth something," Eli said finally. "Coming here tonight, admitting that, it's worth something." Bridger nodded once, then disappeared into the darkness. The party wound down around midnight. Margaret left with promises to keep the lawyers working. Abigail cleaned up the kitchen, refusing all offers of help. One by one the children drifted off to sleep, Faith first, then Toby, then Sam. Hope lingered. She stood by the window watching the snow fall, her doll clutched against her chest. "You should sleep," Eli said gently. "I can't." "Bad dreams." She shook her head. "Good dreams. That's worse." Eli moved to stand beside her. "How is that worse?" "Because I wake up and remember they're not real. That Mama and Papa are still dead. That everything bad still happened." Her voice was barely a whisper. "When I have nightmares, at least I know they're not real. But the good dreams, they trick me, make me forget. And then I have to remember all over again." Eli's chest ached. "I understand that," he said. "I dream about my daughter sometimes. Dream she's still alive. And then I wake up, and for just a second I forget. And then I remember." Hope looked up at him. "Does it ever stop hurting?" "No, but it changes. Gets softer. More like an old scar than an open wound." "How long does that take?" "Different for everyone. No rules about grief. No timeline." She was quiet for a moment. "Mr. Eli." "Yeah. I'm glad you stopped. That day when everyone else walked past." Something in Eli's throat tightened. "Me too. I wasn't ready to talk before. I was too scared, too sad. But I could hear everything, could see everything. I saw how you took care of us, how you didn't give up." "I wasn't going to give up on you, Hope, ever." "I know." She turned back to the window. "That's why I'm talking now. Because I finally believe someone's going to stay." Eli put his hand on her shoulder. She didn't flinch away. "Get some sleep," he said. "Tomorrow's going to be a long day." "Why?" "Because we've got a family to build, and that takes work." Hope nodded, walked toward the children's room, stopped at the doorway. "Mr. Eli." "Yeah. Thank you for being the one who stopped." She was gone before he could answer. The storm hit 3 days later. Not a legal storm, not Blackwood making another move. A real storm, the kind Wyoming was famous for. The kind that killed livestock and trapped travelers and turned the world into a white hell. Eli saw it coming from the west, a wall of gray swallowing the mountains. "Everyone inside," he ordered. "Now." They'd prepared for this. Margaret had warned them that winter storms in Wyoming could last for days, could drop temperatures so low that exposed skin froze in minutes. The cabin was stocked with food, firewood, and water, but nothing could have prepared them for the sound. The wind hit like a freight train. The walls shook. The shutters screamed. Faith started crying, and Toby pressed his hands over his ears, and even Sam, logical, unflappable Sam, went pale. "It's okay," Eli said, pulling them away from the windows. "The cabin's solid. We're safe." "It sounds like it's trying to get in." Mercy said, her voice tight. "It can try. It won't succeed." They huddled around the fire, all 6 of them, while the storm raged outside. Eli told stories about his time in the army, the funny ones, the ones that didn't involve death and horror. Mercy told stories their mother used to tell about princes and princesses and happy endings. Sam recited facts about storms, because that's how Sam dealt with fear, by understanding it. The worst blizzard in Wyoming history was in 1856. He said, his voice too steady to be natural. Killed over 1,000 cattle and 67 people. They called it the White Death. "That's not helping, Sam," Mercy said. "I find it helpful to know what we're dealing with. Well, the rest of us find it terrifying. Fear is illogical if we've taken all reasonable precautions. Sam, I swear to God." "Enough." Eli's voice cut through their bickering. "We're all scared. That's normal. But we're going to get through this together. Understood?" 2 nods, reluctant but nods. The first day passed, then the second. By the 3rd day, they'd fallen into a routine. Eli kept the fire going, checked the walls for breaches, rationed their food carefully. Mercy managed the cooking and the smaller children. Sam tracked the storm's progress by listening to the wind. And Hope. Hope started talking more. Not a lot. Not constantly. But here and there, she'd offer a comment, an observation, a memory. "Mama used to sing during storms," she said on the second night. "Said it kept the bad spirits away." "Do you remember the song?" Eli asked. Hope nodded slowly. Then in a voice rusty from disuse, she began to sing. It was an old hymn, something about light in darkness and hope in despair. Her voice was thin, trembling not quite on key. But it was real. It was hers. The other children went still. Mercy's eyes filled with tears. Sam swallowed hard. Faith crawled into Hope's lap and wrapped her arms around her sister. When the song ended, no one spoke. Then Toby said, "Hope's talking again." "Yeah," Mercy whispered. "She is." Hope looked at them, all her siblings, her family, and for the first time since their parents died, she smiled. On the fourth day, the storm finally broke. Eli pushed open the cabin door and stepped into a world transformed. Snow piled higher than his waist. The sun blazed in a painfully blue sky. Everything was white and silent and still. Beautiful. Deadly. Both at once. "Stay inside," he told the children. "I need to check the road, make sure we can get to town if we need to." "I'll come with you." Sam was already pulling on his coat. "Your leg is fine. I've been walking on it for 9 years. I know what I can handle." Eli hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but if I say we turn back, we turn back. No arguments." No arguments. They set out together, wading through snow that came up to Sam's chest in places. The boy struggled, but didn't complain, using his arms to pull himself forward, jaw set with determination. "You're strong," Eli said. "Stronger than you give yourself credit for." "I'm slow. My leg makes me slow." "Slow isn't weak. Slow just means it takes longer to get where you're going." Sam was quiet for a moment. "My father used to say that, before he got sick. Said it didn't matter how fast you walked, just that you kept walking." Smart man. He was. Smart and kind and patient. Sam's voice tightened. "I try to remember him that way, not the way he was at the end when the fever had him. When he didn't recognize us anymore. That's not who he was. The fever was just something that happened to him." "I know, but sometimes it's hard to separate the two." They walked in silence for a while. The snow crunched under their boots, the only sound in a world that seemed empty of everything but white. Then Sam said, "Mr. Eli." "Yeah." "Do you think my father would have liked you?" Eli considered the question. "I don't know. Maybe. I hope so. I think he would have. He liked people who kept their promises. People who showed up. I'm trying to be that person." "I know. That's why I think he would have liked you." Sam paused. "And I think maybe he'd be okay with you being our father now, if that's what you want." The words hit Eli like a physical blow. He stopped walking, turned to look at this boy, this 9-year-old with his bad leg, and his sharp mind, and his careful heart. "Is that what you want?" Eli asked. "For me to be your father?" Sam's jaw worked. His eyes were bright with tears he was too proud to shed. "I want to stop being afraid," he said finally. "I want to stop waiting for you to leave. I want to believe that when you say you're staying, you mean it. Forever." "I mean it." "Prove it." "How?" Sam looked at him for a long moment. Then he said, "Call me son." Eli's throat closed. He thought about his own son. The one he'd never had. The one Clara had been carrying when the fire took her. The dream of a family that had died with them. And he thought about this boy. This brave, broken, brilliant boy who'd been through more than any child should have to endure. "Sam," Eli said, his voice rough. "Son." Sam's face crumpled. For the first time since Eli had met him, the boy cried. Really cried. Not the silent tears of someone trying to be strong, but the deep heaving sobs of a child who'd finally found something to hold on to. Eli pulled him close and held him while he wept. "I've got you," he said. "I've got all of you, and I'm not letting go." They stood there in the snow, Two people who'd both lost families, who'd both been running from grief, finding something unexpected in each other. Something that felt like healing. Something that felt like home. When they got back to the cabin, Mercy was standing on the porch, her face white with panic. "Eli, something's wrong. She won't wake up." Eli's blood went cold. He pushed past Mercy through the door to where Faith lay on the bed, pale and still, and barely breathing. Not again. Please God, not again. He pressed his hand to her forehead. No fever. That was good. But her breathing was shallow wrong. What happened? I don't know. Mercy was crying. She was fine this morning, playing with Toby. Then she said she was tired and lay down, and now she won't wake up. Has she eaten? Some bread. Some water. Eli lifted Faith's eyelids, checked her pulse, tried to think through the panic that was threatening to swallow him whole. The water, he said suddenly. Where did it come from? The barrel by the door, the one we filled before the storm. Eli crossed to the barrel, lifted the lid, and his heart stopped. A dead rat floated in the water. Contaminated. The whole supply contaminated. How much did she drink? Mercy's face went gray. I don't know. A cup? Maybe 2? Jesus Christ. Eli scooped Faith into his arms. She was so light, so fragile, so terrifyingly still. I have to get her to town. To the doctor. The road's blocked. You saw it yourself. Then I'll go through the fields, around the mountains, whatever it takes. Eli, the snow. I don't care about the snow. His voice cracked. I am not losing another child. Not again. Not ever again. Mercy stared at him. Then she nodded. Go. We'll be fine here. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone. I know. Just go. Save her. Eli ran. The horse struggled through the drifts, but Eli pushed her harder than he'd ever pushed a horse before. Faith was bundled against his chest, barely breathing, her small body growing colder with every passing minute. Not again. Not again. Not again. The words became a prayer, a mantra, the only thing keeping him from falling apart. Town appeared through the trees, buildings half buried in snow smoke rising from chimneys, people emerging from homes to dig out. Eli rode straight to Dr. Morrison's office, didn't bother to tie the horse, just burst through the door with Faith in his arms. Help her! The water was contaminated. She drank it this morning. She won't wake up. Morrison took one look and went pale. Put her on the table. Now. The next hour was the longest of Eli's life. He stood in the corner of the doctor's office, watching Morrison work, praying to a God he hadn't believed in for years. Faith lay on the table, small and still, while the doctor poured charcoal down her throat, pumped her stomach, checked her pulse over and over again. Come on, Morrison muttered. Come on, little one. Fight. Eli's hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking. Please, please, please. Faith coughed. It was a small sound, weak and wet, but it was the most beautiful thing Eli had ever heard. That's it, Morrison said, relief flooding his voice. That's it. Cough it up. Get it out of your system. Faith's eyes fluttered open. Papa. Eli's knees nearly gave out. He crossed to the table, took her small hand in his. I'm here, he said. I'm right here. My tummy hurts. I know, sweetheart. The doctor's helping you feel better. Was I sick again? A little. But you're going to be okay. Faith's fingers tightened around his. You came, she whispered. You came to save me. Always. I will always come. Promise. Promise. She smiled, that gap-toothed, innocent smile that reminded him so much of Rosie, and closed her eyes. But this time, she was sleeping. Just sleeping. Eli put his head down on the edge of the table and wept. He brought Faith back to the cabin as the sun was setting. The other children were waiting on the porch despite the cold, despite everything he'd told them about staying inside. Mercy ran to meet him before he'd even dismounted. "Is she okay? Is she going to be okay?" "She's going to be fine. Doctor says she needs rest and clean water, but she's through the worst." Mercy sagged with relief. Behind her, Sam was actually smiling. Toby was bouncing on his heels. And Hope. Hope walked forward, reached up and touched Faith's cheek. "I prayed," she said quietly, "the whole time you were gone. I prayed like Mama taught me." "I think it worked," Eli said. "I think so too." He carried Faith inside, laid her in her bed, and covered her with every blanket they had. The other children gathered around, refusing to leave her side. This is what family looks like, Eli thought. People who stay, people who pray, people who refuse to give up on each other. He'd spent 4 years running from the idea of family, 4 years convinced that caring about people only led to pain. But standing in that cabin surrounded by 5 children, who'd somehow become his own, he finally understood the truth. Caring about people did lead to pain. That was the price of love. But it also led to this, to moments of terror followed by moments of grace. To fear that transformed into relief. To broken hearts that learned to beat again. It was worth it. All of it. Every single moment. That night after the children were asleep, Eli sat by the fire and made himself a promise. No more running. No more hiding. No more pretending he didn't care. These children were his. This was his family. And nothing, not storms, not sickness, not Reverend Blackwood or anyone else was going to take them away. Tomorrow, the real fight would begin. But tonight, everyone was safe. And that was enough. Spring came to Wyoming, the way forgiveness comes to broken hearts, slowly, painfully, and then all at once. Eli woke on the first warm morning to find Faith standing at the window, her small hand pressed against the glass. "The snow's melting," she said. "Does that mean winter's over?" "Almost." He crossed to stand beside her. "Few more weeks, and it'll be gone completely." "Good. I don't like winter anymore." "Can't say I blame you." Bushukua. 3 months had passed since the storm. 3 months since Faith had almost died from contaminated water. 3 months since Eli had carried her through the snow, certain he was going to lose another child. But she'd survived. They all had. The investigation into Blackwood's Children's Aid Society had turned up exactly what Margaret Harris had predicted: records of children sold to factories, mines, and workhouses across the East Coast. 14 children placed in 3 years. 7 dead. 3 missing. The rest scarred in ways that might never heal. Blackwood had fled before the authorities could arrest him. "Gone to ground," Sheriff Bridger had said, standing in Eli's cabin with his hat in his hands. "Man like that, he's got connections. Safe houses. People who owe him favors. So he's just free. For now. But there's warrants out in 3 territories. He shows his face anywhere civilized, he's done." It wasn't enough. Eli wanted the man in chains. Wanted him to pay for every child he'd sold, every life he'd destroyed. But it was something. And in the meantime, there was work to do. The adoption papers arrived in April. Whitfield brought them himself, riding out from Cheyenne with a briefcase full of documents and a smile Eli had never seen on a lawyer's face before. "It's official," Whitfield said, spreading the papers across the kitchen table. Mercy Jane Brennan, Samuel Thomas Brennan, Hope Ann Brennan, Tobias William Brennan, Faith Miriam Brennan. Eli stared at the names, his name attached to theirs, making it real, making it permanent. They wanted to keep Hollister too, Whitfield continued. As a middle name, said it was important to remember where they came from. They talked to you about that. They talked to everyone about that, made sure we understood it wasn't negotiable. Whitfield chuckled. "You've got strong-willed children, Mr. Brennan." "Don't I know it?" The children gathered around the table, each of them touching the papers like they were sacred texts. Mercy traced her new name with one finger. Sam read every word, checking for errors. Toby just stared, his eyes bright with tears he was trying not to shed. And Hope. Hope picked up the document with her name on it and held it against her chest. "It's real," she whispered. "We're really yours now." "You were always mine," Eli said. "This just makes it so the law agrees. What if you change your mind? What if you decide you don't want us anymore? Then I'd be the biggest fool in Wyoming. And I've been called a lot of things, but never a fool." Faith tugged at his sleeve. "Papa." The word still hit him like a punch to the chest. She'd started calling him that a few weeks after the storm, when she'd woken from a nightmare and reached for him instead of Mercy. "Yeah, sweetheart." "Does this mean we're really a family now? Forever and ever?" Eli crouched down so he was level with her eyes. "We were already a family. The papers are just for other people, so they know what we already knew." "What's that?" "That we belong to each other. All of us. No matter what." Faith threw her arms around his neck. "I love you, Papa." The words cracked something open inside him. Something he'd kept sealed since the fire in Kansas. Something he'd thought would never heal. "I love you too, Faith." The celebration that followed was small but perfect. Margaret Harris brought champagne again, and this time there was no storm threatening, no Blackwood lurking in the shadows, no fear of what tomorrow might bring. Abigail Thorne came with a cake she'd baked herself 3 layers tall, with white frosting, and 5 candles, one for each child. "Make a wish," she said, holding the cake out to them. The children gathered around, looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. Then Mercy said, "We don't need to wish for anything. We already have everything we want." They blew out the candles together. Sheriff Bridger stopped by again, still awkward, still uncomfortable, but there nonetheless. He brought a gift, a wooden box hand-carved with the children's initials burned into the lid. "Made it myself," he said gruffly. "Figured they could keep important things in it." Sam took the box, examined it with those analytical eyes. "This is excellent craftsmanship, Sheriff. I'm no artist." "I didn't say you were. I said it was excellent craftsmanship. That's different." Bridger almost smiled. Almost. "You're a strange kid, Sam Brennan. I prefer unusual. Strange has negative connotations." This time Bridger did smile. The party wound down as the sun set. Margaret left with promises to check on them tomorrow. Abigail cleaned up, refusing help as always. Bridger disappeared into the evening with a nod that said more than words could. And then it was just the 6 of them. Family. "Story," Faith demanded, climbing into Eli's lap. "Tell us a story." "What kind of story?" "A happy one, with a happy ending." Eli thought for a moment. Then he said, "All right. Let me tell you about a man who had everything and lost it all." The children gathered close. Mercy on one side, Sam on the other, Hope and Toby at his feet, Faith in his lap. "This man," Eli continued, "he had a wife who loved him, and a daughter who thought he hung the moon. He had a little farm in Kansas and dreams of building something that would last." "What happened?" Faith asked. "There was a fire. While the man was away working, a fire swept through and took everything: his home, his wife, his little girl. Everything he loved gone in a single night." The children were silent. "The man wanted to die after that. Thought about it every day, but he was too much of a coward to do it himself, so instead he started running. Figured if he kept moving, he'd eventually find a place where the memories couldn't reach him." "Did he find it?" Sam asked quietly. "No. Turns out you can't outrun grief. It follows you wherever you go, patient as death, waiting for you to stop long enough to feel it." "So what happened?" Eli looked at each of them in turn. "One day, the man rode into a small town in Wyoming. He wasn't looking for anything except whiskey and a bed, but then he heard about 5 children, 5 orphans who'd been left to die by people who should have helped them." Faith's eyes went wide. "That's us. That's you. What did the man do?" "He walked into a falling down cabin and found a girl with a knife pointed at his throat. She was 11 years old and scared out of her mind, but she was standing between him and her siblings like she'd fight the devil himself to protect them. Mercy's face flushed. The man looked at that girl and saw something he'd forgotten existed. Courage. Love. The willingness to sacrifice everything for the people you care about. Did he help them? Toby asked. He tried. It was messy and hard, and he made a lot of mistakes. But eventually those children taught him something he'd forgotten. What? Eli's voice softened. That family isn't about blood. It's about showing up. It's about choosing each other every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Is that the happy ending? Faith asked. No, the happy ending is this. He gestured at all of them gathered close in the firelight. The happy ending is right now. The man found 5 children who needed a father, and 5 children found a man who needed them just as much as they needed him. So everyone lives happily ever after. I don't know about ever after. That's a long time and there's no telling what tomorrow will bring. But right now, tonight, yeah, everyone's happy. Faith snuggled deeper into his lap. I like that story. Me too. The children drifted off to sleep one by one. Faith first as always, her small body growing heavy in Eli's arms. Then, Toby curled up on the rug by the fire. Then Sam, who'd been reading, but whose eyes kept closing, no matter how hard he fought. Mercy stayed awake the longest. Can I talk to you? She asked quietly. Outside. They stood on the porch together, looking out at the night. Stars scattered across the sky like spilled milk, the last of the snow glinting on distant peaks. I never thanked you, Mercy said. For what? For stopping. That first day, everyone else walked past but you stopped. You don't have to thank me for that. Yes, I do. Because you could have kept walking. Most people would have. Most people did. Her voice tightened. I spent 2 months watching this town ignore us, watching them step over us like we were garbage in the street. I stopped believing anyone would help. I almost didn't. Almost kept walking myself. But you didn't. No, I didn't. Mercy was quiet for a moment. I have something for you. She reached into her pocket and pulled out his locket, Rosie's locket. You said to hold on to it until this was over, until I didn't need proof anymore that you were coming back. Eli looked at the locket in her hand, the only thing he had left of his daughter, the only physical proof that Rosie had ever existed. Keep it, he said. Mercy's eyes went wide. What? Keep it. It belongs to you now. But it was your daughter's, and now it's yours, all of you. He closed her fingers around the locket. Rosie would have loved you, would have loved having sisters and brothers. She used to beg Clara and me for a big family. I can't. You can. You're my daughter now, Mercy. That means everything I have is yours, including the memories. Tears spilled down Mercy's cheeks. I'll take care of it, I promise. I know you will. She hugged him, then really hugged him. Not the awkward, hesitant embraces of the past few months, but a real hug full of trust and love and gratitude. Thank you, she whispered, for everything, for saving us. You saved me right back. The first day of school came on a Monday in May. Eli walked all 5 children to the small schoolhouse 2 miles east of the ranch. Faith held his right hand. Hope held his left. Mercy. Sam and Toby walked ahead, bickering about something they were always bickering about something these days the way siblings did. Miss Hannah Price stood in the doorway watching them approach. She was young, maybe 28, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner that reminded Eli of Margaret Harris. Mr. Brennan, I've been expecting you. These are my children, Mercy, Sam, Hope, Toby, and Faith. The words came out easy now, natural, like he'd been saying them his whole life. Welcome to Silver Creek School. Miss Price smiled at each of them in turn. We're glad to have you. Will there be other children? Toby asked quietly. Children who look like me. Miss Price's expression softened. Not right now, Toby. But there will be children who judge you by who you are, not what you look like. I make sure of that in my classroom. Toby nodded slowly. Okay. And if anyone gives you trouble, you tell me. Understood? Yes, ma'am. Eli crouched down to say goodbye, and suddenly all 5 of them were pressing close, reluctant to let go. I'll be right here when school ends, he said. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? Faith asked. Promise. He watched them file into the schoolhouse. Mercy with her chin high. Sam with his careful limp. Hope clutching her doll, she still carried it everywhere. Though she talked now, smiled now, laughed now. Toby walking straight and tall despite his fear. Faith bouncing on her heels with excitement. His children. His family. The door closed behind them. Eli stood there for a long moment, looking at the schoolhouse, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The fire in Kansas. The years of running. The cabin in Silver Creek. The 5 children who'd given him a reason to stop. They'll be fine. He turned. Sheriff Bridger sat on horseback a few yards away, watching with an unreadable expression. I know. Then why are you still standing there? Because I spent 4 years walking away from things. Figured I'd practice staying for a while. Bridger almost smiled. You're a strange man, Brennan. I prefer unusual. This time Bridger actually laughed, a short, surprised sound like he'd forgotten he knew how. Sam's been rubbing off on you. All of them have. Bridger was quiet for a moment. I got news this morning. Thought you'd want to hear it. Eli's body went tense. Blackwood. Found dead in a boarding house in Denver, shot twice in the chest. Nobody saw anything. Nobody heard anything. Who did it? Don't know. Don't particularly care to find out. Bridger's eyes were hard. Man like that, he made a lot of enemies. Could have been anyone. Eli thought about all the children Blackwood had sold, all the families he'd destroyed, all the lives he'd cut short or scarred beyond repair. He deserved worse. Maybe, but dead is dead. He's not coming for your children, that's what matters. Your children. Even the sheriff was saying it now. Thank you for telling me. Bridger nodded, turned his horse toward town. Bridger, Eli called. The sheriff looked back. You ever want to stop being a man with regrets, you know where to find us. There's always work at the ranch. Always room at the table. Bridger's face did something complicated. I'll think about it. He rode away. Eli walked back to the ranch alone. But he didn't feel alone anymore. He could feel them with him. Mercy's fierce protectiveness, Sam's quiet strength, Hope's hard-won voice, Toby's stubborn joy, Faith's boundless love. They were part of him now, woven into the fabric of who he was. And he was part of them. Summer arrived with long days and warm nights. The children thrived. Mercy made friends at school, real friends, girls her own age who didn't care about her past, only her present. Sam discovered a talent for mathematics that made Miss Price talk about colleges back east. Hope started singing again, her voice growing stronger every day. Toby stood up to a bully who called him names and earned the respect of every child in the schoolyard. Faith learned to read and wouldn't stop showing off to anyone who'd listen. And Eli learned what it meant to be a father again. He learned that bedtime was a negotiation, not a decree. That skinned knees required bandages and sympathy in equal measure. That nightmares didn't go away just because you loved someone. You had to be there when they woke, had to hold them until the fear passed, had to prove again and again that you weren't going anywhere. He learned that patience wasn't just waiting. It was staying calm when Faith spilled milk on his last clean shirt. It was explaining long division to Sam for the 15th time. It was listening to Mercy's problems without trying to fix them. It was giving Hope space to be quiet without making her feel broken for needing it. It was answering Toby's endless questions about everything without once losing his temper. He learned that love wasn't a feeling. It was a choice you made every single day over and over until it became as natural as breathing. On a Sunday evening in late August, they gathered on the porch to watch the sunset. Faith sat in Eli's lap. Hope leaned against his shoulder. Sam and Mercy argued about something they were always arguing, those two, and Eli had learned to let them work it out themselves. Toby lay on his back, counting the first stars as they appeared. "Papa," Faith asked. "Yeah. Are you happy?" The question caught him off guard. He thought about Clara and Rosie buried in Kansas dirt, about 4 years of running, about the night he'd ridden into Silver Creek expecting to find nothing but whiskey and oblivion. He thought about a cabin falling apart, a girl with a knife, 5 children who'd been abandoned by everyone and everything, and he thought about now. This porch, this sunset, these children, his children. "Yeah," he said. "I'm happy. Really, forever happy. I don't know about forever, but right now, tonight with all of you, yeah, I'm happy." Faith snuggled closer. "Me too." Mercy stopped arguing with Sam long enough to look over. "What are you two talking about?" "Papa says he's happy." "Is that so?" Mercy's voice was teasing, but her eyes were soft. "Took him long enough to figure that out. I'm a slow learner. The slowest." But she smiled when she said it. The sun dipped below the mountains. The stars came out one by one, the same stars that had watched over them through the worst of it, the storm, the sickness, the fear, the uncertainty. Eli pulled his children close and let himself feel what he'd been running from for 4 years. Gratitude, hope, love. He'd lost everything once. Had been certain he'd never recover, never heal, never find a reason to stop running. But then he'd walked into a falling down cabin in the middle of a Wyoming winter and found 5 children who needed him. 5 children who'd saved him right back. Mercy, Sam, Hope, Toby, Faith, his family, his home, his future. The man who'd been ready to die had found something worth living for, and he was never letting go. "Papa," Faith murmured, already half asleep. "Yeah, sweetheart." "Tell us a story." Eli smiled. "Once upon a time there was a man who had nothing left to lose. He rode into a small town in Wyoming looking for an ending. Instead, he found a beginning. What kind of beginning? The best kind, a family. And did they live happily ever after?" Eli looked at his children, all 5 of them gathered close, safe, loved. "Yeah," he said. "They did." The stars burned bright overhead. The children slept. And Elijah Brennan, who had spent 4 years running from everything that mattered, finally understood what home meant. It wasn't a place. It was the people you chose to love, the people who chose to love you back, the ones who stayed. And these 5 children, these brave, broken, beautiful children, they were his, now and forever, no matter what.